Good evening, and welcome to Direct Impact Broadcasting, the station of growth and transformation. Affiliate of Creative Broadcasting presents Leadership Tidbits with Coach T. Wilson, with your host, Tywauna Wilson, as she welcomes her guest to the studio.
Welcome to Leadership Tidbits with Coach T. Wilson. I am your host, Tywauna Wilson. A little bit about myself. I am your award-winning leadership maven, medical laboratory scientist by background, best-selling author, owner-in-chief leadership consultant at Trinity Elite Coaching and Consulting Services, executive director with the John Maxwell team, co-owner of Direct Impact Broadcasting Media Network, and visionary of the Leadership Tidbits book series. Before we bring on my special guest, I want to share a few announcements. If you have not gotten your signed copy of the best-selling business book, Leadership Tidbits, you can do so today by going to www.coachtwilson.com. Also, applications are being accepted for Leadership Tidbits 2. We have got such positive reviews about our practical business book that you can use in both your personal and professional life. And so we are opening up the doors for our next group to be involved with Leadership Tidbits, the second edition. If that may be you, if you are a leadership trailblazer and you want to share your words of wisdom that you have learned over the years, you can go to www.leadershiptidbits.com and you will find more information about the authors that were featured in the first edition. You will also find reviews from customers who have read that book, as well as the application to apply. If you are in need of ongoing leadership tips and personal development support, I encourage you to join my leadership tribe at TrinityEliteLeadershipTribe.com. Special thanks to my media mentors, Miss Ashley Little and Miss Kimberly McLemore of Talk Radio and Network TV LLP. Today's special guest is Miss Robin Shabazz. Ms. Robin Shabazz of the East Ledge Group, LLC, is a business organization consultant with expertise in teaching leaders at all levels how to become more efficient working in multicultural environments. Robin is a licensed attorney and a civil mediator in the state of Ohio, whose career has spanned over 30 years with proven results in cultural transformation, diversity and inclusion, human resource management, and employee relations. As a certified unconscious bias and cultural intelligence facilitator, Robin capitalizes on her diverse background to bring both a pragmatic and risk mitigation approach to her work. Her clients range from Ohio nonprofits to global Fortune 50 companies to technology startups. Prior to forming the East Ledge Group, Robin held several leadership roles within global retail companies. She served as Senior Vice President of Human Resources for Signet Jewelers Incorporated, where she was responsible for developing and executing the human capital strategy in support of the overall strategic direction of the company. While at Luxottica Retail, she built a nationally recognized human capital analytics infrastructure, which linked employee behaviors and traits to business outcomes. Her work was published in Talent Management Magazine and the book, Calculating Success: How the New Workplace Analytics Will Revitalize Your Organization. Clients seek her counsel on a wide array of workplace issues, such as cultural audits, workplace investigations, diversity, equity and inclusion, roadmaps, implicit bias training, and human resource policy and procedure development. Her portfolio of clients include ConX Incorporated, Toyota Motor Manufacturing, Indiana, Metro, SORTA, Akron Urban League, the International Customer Service Association, Ohio Department of Health, Cincinnati Regional Chamber of Commerce, and the University of Cincinnati College of Law. Robin speaks at workshops, universities, and seminars on unconscious bias, cultural intelligence, inclusive leadership, and building trust-based relationships. She was honored in 2019 by the Cincinnati Chamber of Commerce as a Second Act Award recipient and holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration and Juris Doctor. Please, please, please welcome my guest, Miss Robin Shabazz. Good evening, Robin. How are you doing?
Good evening. Oh, I am fantastic. Wow. Thank you for quite a wonderful introduction and for the invitation to participate in your podcast. I'm so excited.
I am excited to have you on. I'm excited to learn all about you. I learned something new just from asking you to be a guest on this show. So I know that you have a ton of information to share with the listeners. So let's jump right into it so that they can get these nuggets of wisdom that you have to offer. So, Ms. Robin, can you please tell the listeners a little bit about your leadership journey and how did you get to where you are today?
Wow. I feel like truly, I just started my leadership journey 2 years ago when I left corporate America and started my own company. But just to kind of step back a little bit, I have always been goal-oriented. My parents were very serious when it came to education and grades. And I distinctly remember packing my bags back when I was about 15 years old, ready to run away, when my mom put me on a summer-long punishment for getting my first C in ninth grade biology. So we were really serious about setting high expectations and achieving goals. Lucky for me, I loved school, loved learning, still do. I had the pleasure of going to an HBCU. So for those who may not be familiar with those acronyms, I attended Florida A&M University, which is a historically Black college and university for undergraduate work. And after graduation, I worked for one of the largest it was probably a Fortune 10 company at that time, which was General Electric in Stamford, Connecticut at their headquarters. And then decided I wanted to go to law school because I wanted to be the first Black woman Supreme Court justice. Well, I didn't do that. But what I did end up having the opportunity to work for a wonderful company here in Cincinnati for many, many years. And I was an in-house corporate counsel there and really ended up specializing after several years with that company in employment law. And that led me into HR. And although I never took one HR class in life, following in the steps of a mentor of mine, after a corporate restructure, I went into HR operations and really never left. I fell in love with HR. It came natural to me. And I was able to apply both my undergraduate degree in finance and my legal degree in the practice of human resources. And it just, grew from there. I spent about 30 years actually in corporate America in successive roles in HR up until 2 years ago when I left a large retail organization. You mentioned them, Signet Jewelers, where I was their senior vice president of human resources for North America, and came back to Cincinnati with a lot of support from my husband and my mentors, and started my own consulting company, the Sledge Group.
Wow. You have such a diverse background with law and finance and business. Did you find it difficult to make that transition from moving from corporate America to the entrepreneurial side?
It's interesting because I always saw myself as a corporate person, and I put that in quotes because I was almost a lifer. I mean, 30 years is a long time. And I was literally counting down the days to early retirement because I had put my time in for the pension. And I was with the company at the time that still had a pension. So I never really envisioned myself as leaving corporate America. However, what eventually began to happen is that the emotional tax of being often the only, quote unquote, or being the token for so many years, paid such a huge toll on my emotional and physical health. Don't get me wrong, I had a great career, and I definitely feel blessed to have been with all the places that my career has taken me. But I did not shed a tear when I left, hung up my corporate handcuffs, and decided to start my own business. And the transition was challenging, but what I had is the ability to reach back into my network of supporters and friends, former colleagues, former managers and mentors who were there in many ways. Most of them, my first clients, many of them were part of my network that I had built while I was in corporate America. And if they weren't hiring me, they were certainly mentoring me and encouraging me and connecting me with the right people who could help me along the way. Because leaving the role that I was in, where I had people around me who did a lot of the things that helped make me successful, I now, as the owner of a business, had to wear not 5, 10, 15 hats, but 30 hats. It seems like where you're everything from the mailroom, right, to the admin, to the chief executive officer, to the IT person, to the marketing person. I know I'm preaching to the choir, as you well know, but it's a daunting task, but it's one that every day I look forward to it.
Absolutely. You're right. You're the chief executive everything. You're the CEO, COO, CMO, and all the other O's that go with it once you move into the entrepreneurial space. Robin, with your over 20 years of corporate background work prior to opening your firm, what strengths and or experience do you feel were important and needed, really, in corporate America and small business? So a lot of our emerging leaders are always thinking about, what skills do I need? What strengths would be of benefit for me to be successful in my professional life? So can you talk a little bit about that, of what you felt made you dynamic in both the corporate space and now in your entrepreneurial journey?
Absolutely. I see two things, really. From my perspective, one of the most important skills, both on the corporate side and now on the small business side, has been the ability to build relationships and collaborate with people from all types of background, experiences, and skill sets. Collaboration is the new currency, as they say, right? And I have always been a networker of sorts. My sister and I have that in common. We both love meeting and talking to different people from all walks of life. It's difficult to advance in any role without the support of other people, right? So building relationships has always been key. And as I mentioned earlier, my first clients came from relationships that I built when I was in corporate America. I think the other important strength or skill set that you need to have is just the ability to know the stuff that you're selling and know it well. I tell people all the time, just because you attend a seminar on a topic doesn't mean you can train people on it. It's important to take the time to become proficient at what you're practicing. And the slogan, practice makes perfect, hasn't been around for 450 years for nothing. So no matter what you're doing, if you're an HR business partner, practice may mean researching new trends in HR and then auditing your own policies against these trends. As an entrepreneur like myself, practice often means meeting with community leaders to better understand the unmet needs of the clients that I serve or that I want to serve. So practice means staying knowledgeable and current in your field by any means necessary.
Absolutely. It is important to be able to know what you do and do it well. So I absolutely agree with that, to know your craft and know it very well. Can you share with the listening audience a little bit about your work at the East Ledge Group? I know I mentioned it in your bio and talked a little bit about it, but I want the listeners to really understand what your firm is doing and how you work with organizations in their change and performance management efforts.
Absolutely. The East Ledge Group is a management consulting firm specializing in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And most importantly, we're about helping organizations build the capabilities necessary to be effective in our multicultural world. And we do this by teaching, facilitating, and delivering simple yet practical skills to help build motivation, knowledge, strategies, actions that organizations, small or large, need for managing and relating to all cultures. And we all have seen in the news that we are becoming a nation of Black and brown people. And for the first time in our history, the minority is going to be the majority in the next few decades. And most organizations are not ready for that. They have a diversity plan, and maybe they have a few employee resource groups, but do they understand what cultural intelligence means? And that is one of the areas that I specialize in. And cultural intelligence, while it was developed nearly 20 years ago by two academic researchers, what it means is it's the capability to relate and work effectively in a culturally diverse environment. And it is 100% about building capabilities or skills needed to be effective. So it's not just about awareness training, and it's not just about attending a seminar session. It is about what are the key capabilities that I need to be more effective in working with people that may be different than me. And different doesn't just mean visibly different. Different could also mean that we think differently. It could mean our cultural values are different. So it's both the visible and invisible traits that make us people different. So for me, I fell in love with this concept because it's about skill building. And skill building is very close to problem solving, which as an attorney is my happy place. I love problem solving.
Me as well. Being a scientist, I love problem solving and troubleshooting. So it's interesting that you say this, and I'm happy to hear more about it, because we hear a lot about diversity and inclusion and, going to workshops and sometimes we apply and sometimes we don't. And the majority of the people, when they think about diversity and inclusion, they are thinking, like you said, about what you can physically see. Whether it be our racial background or whatever the case may be. So I am very interested in hearing more about, your work in that regards, because, the reality is sometimes we think that we understand other people and we don't necessarily understand them. For example, I recently became a new mom, and, I felt like I was empathetic to other mothers. I felt like I was empathetic to women that had children. But until you walk in those footsteps, you never really understand the things that they go through to be a working mom, to juggle a household and those kind of things. And so sometimes you may think you are aware, that's just a diversity there, before having kids to having kids. You think you understand, what somebody is going through, and you may not.
Absolutely.
So I'm happy.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure you talk about some of those things in your work when it comes to, those differences, economic background, educational background, and how our views may be skewed, based off of our own perception.
Yes, because how we are socialized really, which starts from, studies have indicated it starts as early as, 2 years old, and even, maybe even younger. The books that we read to our children, the lessons that we teach them on what's good and what's bad, all of these things begin to form what becomes accepted and normal in their environment, which forms their culture, which forms their cultural norms. And these norms are the lens that we see the world through. So I put on my cultural lens and I see the world as red. Someone else may put theirs on and they see the world as pink. And so how do we blend these two worldviews together where neither one of them are right nor wrong? They're just different. And so it's really about developing the skills to understand where those differences lie, and then developing the strategies that you need to leverage those differences for strength, versus if they're left alone, they'll often create bottlenecks and other unprofitable outcomes within your organization.
Absolutely. That's very important and powerful work that you are doing. So thank you. Thank you and your company for all that you're doing to make us better in the workplace and make our teams better. It's important for our next generation of leaders to not only hear about our successes, but also hear about some of our hardships that we encounter along our leadership journeys. Can you share with the listeners a few of the lessons that you learned along your way?
Absolutely. Actually, one of the most powerful lessons that I've learned that I am still learning and working on today led me to take the leap of faith and leave 30 years of corporate America. And that's the lesson of being true to yourself every day. And we hear a lot about being your authentic self. It's kind of like a buzz phrase, but people don't really take time to really truly unpack that, to understand that, especially when you're the only or one of few, or even if you are in an environment where there's many people who may look like you on the outside, if you could still be covering or downplaying certain important aspects of your identity to fit into the ideal of what a leader, quote unquote, should look like, should sound like, should act like. There's a really great book. If there are any diversity, equity, inclusion folks out there, or HR nerds out there, it's by Kenji Yoshino, and it's called Covering. The Hidden Assault on Our Human Rights. It's a great book. And it talks about the physical and mental health effects suffered by people who feel the pressure to conform to other people's norms. I live that every day. I didn't talk about it much, so my family, my friends may not have even known it because it became normal. It's like, I have a backache, but I just take an Advil every day and live with it. I have the backache of covering every single day. And thank goodness, we're making so much more progress because of people out there doing this work in diversity, equity, inclusion. Now you have Black women leaders who wear natural hairstyles to work. You have LGBTQ leaders who can bring their partners or spouses to the holiday party. But there's still so much more that has to be done to eliminate the implicit biases that we all have that's related to what is and is not acceptable behavior in the workplace. I was just reading a recent study by Deloitte that found 80% of African Americans feel pressure to cover aspects of their cultural identity every day at work. 80%. I mean, that's just remarkable. And I know that I lived it, and probably everyone on your call, everyone listening on the call has, because it's not just reserved for people of color or for LGBTQ. White men cover certain aspects of their culture. So this is a human issue. It's something that I'm very passionate about, as you can probably tell. And it's one of the things that the East Ledge Group is constantly focused on in the work that we do, is really helping people understand and appreciate the importance of what I call whole selfness.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. The other thing I think that's also really important in terms of one of the hardships for me, or lessons learned for me, that I'm constantly working on is to be a better listener. That's a hard one sometimes for me because I'm an attorney, and even though I'm not practicing, I'm still an attorney. And I feel like I was born to be one. And we're always working on what we need to say next. Like our mind is two conversations ahead of the current one we're in. Ask my family. They're on mute, but they would attest to it. I promise you. I mean, it's like that's how we're wired, And think about it. You weren't pretending to be able to be like that. So it's hard to turn that off. But now that I'm working in the field of cultural intelligence, I use listening to build trust and gather much needed information about other cultures and their norms, because part of what I do as a facilitator is listen non-judgmentally, right? I would not be successful if I wasn't able to do that. And so this field is helping me become a better listener.
So you are growing each and every day. You're helping others,
Yes.
and you are still growing as well. Awesome.
Yes.
So I know you talked a little bit about mentorship and making that transition from corporate America to your own firm. So what role has mentorship played on the progression of your career? And you kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but has it had you take any risk based off of your career and your expertise and the expertise that you received from your mentors?
Well, I can tell you that this is a topic that I could just talk on and on about, because I have been truly blessed with the most amazing set of mentors. And for me, the blessing is that these mentors are still with me today. I have men, women, white, Black, young, older, same career, different career. And one of the things that they all have had in common was the ability to see more in me than I saw in myself. So they pushed me to get outside of my comfort zone in many ways throughout my career, and challenged me in ways that inspired me to believe and invest in myself. And we're often our own worst critic, right? We work to please others at the expense of self, which is not a good thing. It's not healthy, but it's often something that I find, especially female professionals, we really, are good at that, right? Mm-hmm. But through my mentors, I have learned to do the best that I can, be the best that I can, and live the best that I can, and let all the rest go. And matter of fact, one of my mentors today is hugely responsible for my current career. He encouraged me to take this leap of faith into entrepreneurship. And he even became my first client for my first year. Yeah, for my first year. I could say my business was hugely, successful my first year because of the belief that he had in me and giving me, retaining me to do work that he knew I had the capability to do, even when I may have questioned it myself.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome to have a mentor that really believed in you and pushed you, to the next level, pushed you and challenged you to greatness, knew that you could do it and you might not have pushed yourself. So that's awesome that you had that mentor to do that. Some of our
and I think that
I'm sorry.
I think that young people, and not even the young emerging leaders, but everyone, look for those types of mentors, because sometimes, we may not even realize that we're looking for mentors that can kind of co-sign on what we're thinking. But I have really, some of my best mentors are the people who really pretty much tell me just the opposite of what I want them to tell me, and push me to see things differently through a different lens, if you will, and also push me to do things outside my comfort zone. So I think that's an important aspect of a mentor in your life, is to have people who can do that.
I agree. So some of our listeners are probably thinking, you've been very fortunate and very blessed to have mentors in various aspects of your life. How would you tell somebody else where would they find a mentor, or any suggestions? Did they ask for a mentor or ask somebody? This is a question that comes up quite often. Where do I even start with a mentor or finding one? Do I ask somebody? How do I even get started? What would you suggest?
Well, I think that one of the best ways to find a mentor is to find someone you want to be like. Find someone who you admire and aspire to be like. And, then perhaps ask that person, or ask someone. Nowadays, it's a heck of a lot easier with social media to make those introductions. And I have even used LinkedIn, right, as many of us have, as a way to meet people that I admire that I would not know. And very few times have I ever, if at all, been turned down when I ask someone, hey, can I meet, would you be, willing to meet for a cup of coffee? And very few people are going to say no, especially when you ask them to meet for a cup of coffee, because there are so many things that they've accomplished in their life and in their career that you would like to learn from. And so that's flattery, right? That really makes a potential mentor feel great. That's a human thing. We all like to kind of be patted on the back for doing things well, and our ego stroked. It's a human thing. So if you are genuine about it and you've studied that person, you know a little bit about their background, not in a stalker like fashion, but just you research them and you make the ask, right? And the important thing is then you follow up after the meeting. You have some meaningful conversation. You talk through the questions that you have, and I believe it's important to kind of let the relationship evolve organically. Don't be pushy. And don't check out if you don't feel you're getting the response that you want, because people are busy. But some of my mentors I may only talk to a couple times a year. But when I need them, I let them know, hey, I need you. I have a question. I need to run by you. Do you have 10 minutes for a quick call? And now there are also organizations that's kind of the organic way, right? But there are also organizations out there that do pairing. For me, I have never done the whole organizational pairing of a mentor. I have taken the approach of finding my mentors organically, and I think that is. And I'm a little bit partial to that method, but I think that's a more genuine way, because you are genuinely picking someone that you aspire to model some traits after versus having someone else kind of match you with someone.
Yes, I absolutely agree. I've actually been matched with somebody in a formal mentoring program, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I served as a mentee and a mentor in a program, and sometimes the connections last, and sometimes they don't. So in one organization, I was matched, and it was kind of like we had a mentoring relationship for a defined time. And then that was it. We moved on about our way. And then I had another mentoring relationship where we were matched. I was matched with a young scientist at University of Cincinnati, and we are still connected to this day. We've been together since she was in school, since she graduated. She is now a member of our illustrious sorority. We went through that process. She was a hostess at my wedding. I've been to her wedding. And we've been together for years now, way beyond the matching process. So it can work either way. So that's great information that you shared. And I also want to piggyback on the whole LinkedIn that you mentioned. A lot of people are sleeping on LinkedIn and what it offers for professionals. I mean, so if you are not active on LinkedIn, there are ways to network and connect with a wide variety and array of people on that platform. So if you maybe got a profile and haven't been over there in a while, I suggest that you dust off your profile and go take a look at over there on LinkedIn.
Yes. And I want to just double back and clarify something, because when we were talking about mentors, I was really looking at it from the standpoint of professional mentors when you're in your career. When you're talking about mentors when you're in, still in high school or maybe in middle school, I think that's a completely different process. So there, I think it's important that you are appropriately matched. That's how that process absolutely should work. However, my experience and how I was viewing this question was through the standpoint of, if you are in your career, what are some of the ways to identify a professional mentor as an adult?
Oh, I think that's a great clarification. I think that's great. Robin, growth is intentional. If we are not learning, we are not growing, and it's easy to get comfortable and get stagnant. So, what are some of the things that you do for your own personal and professional growth to keep your cup full? So, as you are pouring into everybody else's cup and making sure they are fed and knowledgeable, what are you doing to keep yourself energized and learning and engaged?
Well, I'm an avid reader, so I love books. Um, it's reading is one of my top three hobbies. So I am reading something every day, whether it's a book, white paper, blog, article, you name it. I always have two or three books on the shelf ready to read at any given time. So, like, in multiple books at any given time. Right now, I think I have a book by a woman by the name of Amy Cuddy, and it's called Presence. And it's about letting go of trying to impress others and focus on being your best self. And the other book that I have that's on deck is I'm excited to crack it open this weekend, hopefully, is a book by Carol Anderson. It's called White Rage, The Unspoken Truth of Our Racial Divide. So I'm excited to delve into that as I'm attending a workshop next week on facilitating racial justice discussions. So it's sort of like my warm up.
Nice. So, are you a physical book person or audio book person? Do you have a preference? I just like to ask the question because sometimes people say audio books is not really reading. I disagree. However, just asking.
Let me just tell you this. If I was an attorney, I would be a librarian. So maybe that answers the question. I used to spend Friday nights in the library. I mean, I like to touch the pages. So I have had every type of, electronic device that I could read a book off of. And I always revert back to the paper because I highlight and I circle and, I want to flag certain things that I later want to come back to. And I don't know, I'm just comfortable with having them, touching them and seeing them present right there on my nightstand.
Understandable. There's nothing wrong with a physical book. I actually have physical books, but I will say I am an audio girl, probably because I have long commutes. So maximizing my minutes.
Yes, absolutely. You know what? I do listen to books when I'm driving, when I'm commuting, or either a podcast. So yes, now that's the exception. I absolutely agree with you.
Robin, as an entrepreneur, you learn to have tough skin, and well, you probably learned to have tough skin being an attorney, uh, because you hear some yeses, but you're going to hear a lot of no's as well. So, what kind of mindset have you had to develop or change since moving into the entrepreneurial space? Because being an entrepreneur is a different kind of mindset. Sometimes you hear those no's and you just want to be like, forget it. Just forget it. You don't want what I have to offer, forget it. But you cannot say that when you need business and when you need to get your whatever it is that you have, your service, your product in the hands of those that need it. So how have you made that transition? If you had to transition, what kind of mindset?
Well, it's interesting because I think you said it right in the beginning. I mean, my skin was, reptilian tough. So, having gone through the kind of what I went through and going through the ranks in corporate America, and especially as being an attorney, but I have, as I've mentioned, I have been blessed to have experienced, reasonably a reasonable amount of success in my first 2 years as a small business owner. And again, what has been a huge contributor to that is the collaboration with others. And what I find is that often what I have heard the no's is where some other small business owners have been reluctant maybe to collaborate or to share a significant piece of their pie, right? And that's usually because with other entrepreneurs, right? And that's usually because they fear that they won't have enough pie to eat themselves. But what I have found, the reality really is that by sharing their pie, they'll gain access to more pies along the way. So I've experienced to know that has been surprising to me in this space is when I have wanted to collaborate with others in this space. So that's been a little eye-opening to me, but, where one door closes, several open. But it's funny now because as a corporate leader, I viewed failure as the kiss of death. I mean, I took it so personal. My husband can tell you, took it hard. Now, as a business owner, failure merely means not right now. So it's like, okay, well, that's fine, not right now, or not you, but it's definitely someone else, because there's so much more sense of control of destiny as an entrepreneur, and I don't have those same concerns over walking someone else's idea of what should be my destiny. And even though I encounter no, it's not viewed as a close of a coffin. It's viewed as an opportunity for a future yes.
That's good. I like that. So failure just means not right now. I love it. I love it because you're right. And sometimes when I work with our young people and they view failure as the kiss of death, and sometimes viewing it like that could lead to them harming themselves or hurting themselves and being afraid to make mistakes. And when you are afraid to make mistakes or afraid of failing, then you are hesitant to try new things. And for our young people, that could be a detriment. So I like that. I like that failure just means not right now. Right now, not in this season. It doesn't mean not ever, just not right now. And so as I think about that, in hindsight, we often look back over our journeys and think, I wish I would have known X. So when you think about your journey, what advice would you give to your 20-year-old self who was matriculating through college or in life and trying to figure it out? What would you say to that person?
Wow. I would say first, learn a second language. That makes you so much more marketable in so many ways. It's a multiplier. I took Latin for, I don't know, too many years, so go figure. But on a deeper note, I wish as a much more earlier in life, I would have had the courage to be a more authentic as a leader. And I know it would have made me a kinder person. Jeff Bezos retold, the Amazon CEO, retold a story that his grandfather shared with him as a child, I believe. It was something like, Jeff, one day you'll understand that it's harder to be kind than clever. And I believe this is accurate for many African American leaders because we spend so much time focusing on suppressing our true identity that the emotional tax is multiplied onto others. There was one day I was leaving work. I was probably, 15 years or so into my legal career. And one of my now mentors, he was an executive that I looked up to, stopped me as I was walking out the door. It was late. It was about 7:00 at night. And he called me over to his office. And he said a few things to me. And I guess by the look of my face, he said to me, you really need to take off your armor. And I looked at him like in shock, right? And, all along I'm thinking I got to be the fastest, the best, the hardest, the strongest. All of the superlatives were taught in order to, get things done by and through, our male or our white colleagues and employees, right? And when he said those 4 words, I promise you, I melted. I have never cried at work. And I just right there, shoulder slumped, and I just boo-hooed. Right there, holding my briefcase and my purse and gym bag and all that other stuff as a young professional you have. But in the end, that armor didn't protect me from being my own worst enemy. So, young people and leaders who carry this, this burden of having to be the best, to make it, often, wear this armor. And so take off your armor, be yourself. Don't let the fear of fitting in stop you from embracing who you are. I'm a woman of faith. God didn't make any mistakes. If your company, your institution, your organization doesn't embrace you for who you are, then send them my way. I'll help them get there. But whole selfness, that's important. That is important. And I learned that lesson too late in life, maybe. Too late in life.
That's good. That's good. Take off your armor. You are absolutely right. Many times we as leaders, especially if you're in an environment that is not diverse in its thinking, you are with a full armor on every single day. And it can be difficult, especially when you spend the majority of your time at work. And then to try and transition when you get home can be difficult. Robin, what's next for you as our time is coming to a close? And I could talk and listen to you for another hour, but unfortunately we don't have that time tonight. I'll have to have you back another time. But what's next for you?
Well, I would say that in 2020, I am focused on growing my business and building my brand, collaborating with other wonderful female entrepreneurs. And I actually have a new passion project that is still in the early development stage, so I don't want to share too many details. But I can say that it focuses on breaking down the barriers that female African American entrepreneurs face. And we're the fastest growing group of small business owners in the U.S., but we face the largest number of barriers. I want to help break those down.
Ooh, that sounds interesting. I am intrigued. I guess I'll have to stay tuned because I know it's early and you don't want to give too much away. So I will jump over there at LinkedIn and make sure that I stay connected with you and see as this unfolds. So, Robin, Robin, how can our listeners stay connected with you and continue to follow you on your leadership journey and support
Absolutely. Well, they can certainly contact me at R. Shabazz. That's SHAB as a boy, AZZ at theeastledgegroup.com. And my website, which is in the process of being redesigned, is theeastledgegroup.com. So please come and check us out.
Awesome. Well, our time tonight has come to a close. It went so fast, but you shared so many great nuggets. So thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to give me the opportunity to interview you tonight.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me. And I look forward to maybe, stopping by again sometime.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I wish you nothing but much success and many blessings in 2020 in both your professional life with your business as well as your personal life. So thank you. Thank you,
and same to you.
Thank you. Thank you, listening audience, for tuning in to tonight's show with our special guest, Robin Shabazz, where she shared with us, collaboration is the new currency. Don't be afraid to have strategic partnerships or collaborations with others, because what it does is it opens up additional doors for you. You need the support of other people to move through life. You can't move through life alone. You need to have the ability to know your craft and know your craft well. You need to be proficient. People, especially if you have a service or a product, people want to know that you know what you're selling, you know what you're talking about. So make sure that you know your craft well. Remember, practice makes perfect. Be true to yourself each and every day. So you take off that armor as you go throughout the day and go throughout your work. Take off that armor and be true to yourself. Learn to be a great listener. Listening builds trust. It's important to have mentors in your life. Mentors will challenge you to see things differently. They'll push you to a new level. When looking for a mentor, find someone that you want to be like or you aspire to be. Failure just means not right now. It doesn't mean not ever, just not right now. And if you have that free time, have time, make time, learn a second language. It's very important, especially in today's society, and be an avid reader. As we know, leaders are readers. So if you like what you heard tonight and want to listen to previous shows, you can subscribe at podcast.coachtwilson.com and find all of our awesome leaders that have been on the show thus far. If you're thinking about starting your own podcast, I would love to help you get started. Go ahead and take the leap in 2020. You have a message, you have a story that somebody needs to hear. You can send me an email at dibroadcasting, that's DIBROADCASTING at TrendyEliteLLC.com. Please tune in next week to hear from another amazing leader. Until then, have a good evening.
Thank you, friends, for tuning in to another episode of Leadership Tidbits with Coach T. Wilson, where Tywauna speaks with leaders who share nuggets of wisdom that you can use in your personal and professional life. Follow her on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Coach T. Wilson. Connect on LinkedIn or visit www.coachtwilson.com. And remember, in life, learn as much as you can, appreciate often, and lead fearlessly.